his kingdom. So the first thing you've got to understand, the function of God is a God of creation. So he creates something inside of you. That's the most important, or the beginning part of it. And the second thing, you can identify it in Jesus. And that is God is a God of redemption. That's what Jesus does. That's the second part of the nature of God and the function of God. So another thing that God does inside your life is he redeems. So which means he takes something that is inside of you that doesn't belong there, because he's created something beautiful inside of you. And he takes that and he replaces it with something that is beautiful. Am I making sense? Because God is the God of redemption. See, Jesus, redemption, even in this definition, it means the purchase back of something that had been lost. Jesus said, I came to restore that which was lost. You know what was lost? Image, holiness, purity, and righteousness was lost. That's why the world is getting wicked, because there is none of it here. But Jesus says, I came to restore that which was lost. I came to redeem. So by my blood, then that righteousness that's been missing can be deposited back into the world. And when you have that, you can be my servants, my laborers. So there is a redeeming thing that happens. You can't just say, I am a Christian, and there's no redemption inside of you. See, you can't just say, I met God or I met Christ, and then your life is the same way you were living before you met Christ. It just can't, because God is a God of redemption. It just can't. Otherwise, you really don't know the God that was talking about. You just don't know him. Because if you do, there's a redeeming thing that happened, a character change, something different inside of you that happens. The way you know a person has been touched by God is not by their lips. It's by the way they live their life, their character. That's the way you know it, man. It's not any other way. That is the absolute truth, man. Because God is a God of redeeming. But see, that has concept, we've lost it. So when we get saved, when we come to God, we're all happy, we're all excited. But we've never let him redeem anything inside of us. So we go back into the world, we act just the same way, we live the same way. There's no redemption. So the world comes into our church building or on our conferences, and then they look at us and they say, wait a minute, these people talk the same way I talk outside. They act just like me. They're rude, they're mean, they're bitter, they gossip the same way everybody else. They cheat, they're greedy, they're selfish, they're self-centered. They know God. They haven't been redeemed. I don't want anything to do with this religion. So they go back into that world. Why? Because we're not being a good witness of who he is. You know why? Because there hasn't been any redeeming happening in your life. But when you know Jesus, man, there's a redeeming thing that happens in your life. And he takes what's evil inside of you and he replaces it with what's good. That is the nature of God. Because God is a God of redemption. He's not just a God of creator. God is a God of redemption, man. I got an email this week. I used to work at a church called Covenant Church in Dallas, and we have a lot of missionaries. I used to go and they build churches, or just, not just in general, building churches, but really advancing the kingdom. And so I got an email they forwarded to all the employees or the once employees of Covenant Church. And it was probably one of the most saddest thing I've ever read. And it was this missionary that had been stationed in Turkey. And she sent an email of her experience there, of something that happened 2 weeks ago in Turkey. And she said they were in a Sunday morning service. It's a small service. There's a pastor and his buddy leads the worship. A guy on the piano, another guy singing. And while they're in the middle of the service in the morning, about 10 or 15 people from a different religion, I don't want to bash anybody's faith, but from a different religion, extremists, came into the building, locked the doors with guns, tied up the pastor, the worship leader, and the piano player, and had every congregation in the service, there was about 30, 40 of them, sit down and watch. They tied them up in the middle of the center of the stage. And for 3 hours, she said, they tortured her. They screamed, they shouted, they couldn't help. For 3 hours, they tortured him. They cut him apart, Finally, they killed him. This isn't circus. There's no help. They're screaming for help, but there's no help. And so their message, those people that did this, their message was, this religion doesn't belong here. And then a few days later, there was only one news reporter that reported this crime. And they interviewed the wife of the pastor. What do you want to say? What do you want to be done to these people that committed this crime? And she stood on national television and said, I want to be done when Jesus said to be done. With tears in her eyes, she said, my only thing towards these boys is I pray for them. My prayer is, God forgive them, for they know not what they do. This is an honest thing. On national TV, she said this. And the people were stunned. The reporter that was asking her starts crying. This is a Muslim country. But the truth is, that's a lady 15 years ago who was a radical Islamist herself. But she came and tasted the redemption power of Jesus. And that hate, that bitterness, that stuff that she was carrying, there was an exchange that happened. And that anger and that hate that she had was replaced with what pure love is. And because of it, she was able to love. See, when you meet Jesus, man, there's an exchange that happens. There's a redemption that happens. You can't just say, I know Jesus, and then go to your house and abuse your kids. That's not Jesus. You just can't. You can't stand here and just lift your hands and worship and go outside in the parking lot. You're just the rudest person. You don't know Jesus, man, because Jesus affects your character. It affects the way you think. It affects the way you carry yourself. It affects everything about you. Otherwise, you don't know the redeeming power of God. You only got saved so that you could get stuff. See, people in prison, it's so easy for them to get saved. If you've ever done prison ministry, you would know it. You know why? They have no other choice. They want to feel better, so they will come to Jesus. But you release them, a week later, they're doing crime again. There's no redemption that happened. But if you're going to call yourself a Christian, Christ-like, that means there's been an exchange that happens in your heart. Because God is not just a God of creation. He doesn't just give you a new birth as soon as we say, Jesus, come into my life. There's an exchange that happens. He redeems. So the second function of God I want you to understand is there's an exchange that happens. So God, when He calls you for His glory or for His name, what He does is He creates something inside of you. And then He replaces it with something of His nature, with holiness, with purity and righteousness. And then the very next thing He does is something that is so important. See, all of this that He's doing is for one goal. God, let it be in the earth as it is in heaven. That's His goal. See, He gets you into His kingdom, not just so that you can shout and just say, I'm going to heaven. No. You've got a job to accomplish, man. There's a world that needs to hear this love. And so the whole reason He gets you in His kingdom is so that you can be His witnesses. And so He creates something inside of you and then He redeems it. And then thirdly, and I think this is probably the most important aspects of the nature of God, and that is the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit comes inside of you to sanctify you, to purify you, and to empower you.